All right, infernal blessings. All right, we're back for another video. Quick announcements. If you're interested in signing up for the classes that I do offer, which are a bunch archived you will have access to. If you're interested in getting in the ongoing classes, I do 3 private classes every month for Patreon members only. You must be a Patreon member to participate in these classes. The way to sign up, go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page located at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3 is the tier you would want to join. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon. It also gives you access to the monthly group ritual we do together on that tier at the end of the month. Again, that's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. If you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, I offer various different readings: telepathic, demonic readings, shadow work readings, deity readings to see what spirits walk with you, Egyptian oracle readings, Santa Muerte readings. Shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com and I will send you the information on how to book a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation. Also, if you're interested in signing up for the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, it is in full effect. We got it all set up. We are finishing up the itinerary, putting together the whole list of the event. Things are starting to shape up as we get closer to that date. The conference will take place October 19th to the 22nd here in Hollywood, Florida, which is in Fort Lauderdale. Close to the beaches, close to hotels, Airbnbs, and minutes from the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. As I said, some people Uber it. They don't even rent a car. Some do if you want to venture around and do some other things. That'll be the 19th to the 22nd of October. We got classes, workshops, rituals, a meet and greet on Thursday night, and some hanging out, some having some fun and just kicking it. It's a really great event for those. It's like our annual event where we can get together every year and fellowship with other people on the path of the occult or the left-hand path. All right. Also, keep in mind all this content is now being uploaded to the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, along with my email address, along with the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes, all of that is in the description box of this video that you are currently watching. All right? So, the second video I wanted to do for today in these ongoing series of short tutorial videos. And keep in mind, if you just came across my channel, my video, you see I have a lot of lives that I do that are 4 hours, where I go more in depth. Keep in mind, these are just short 20 to 30 minute roughly videos, tutorials, just getting to the meat of things. Yes, there's a lot more that can be discussed, but that's not this type of video. Okay, keep that in mind. That's what my lives are for. So if you want more really in-depth, and those that have been watching my channel for a while know I can go on for 3, 4, 5 hours if I want. But that's not what these videos are for. So I want to talk about being proactive as opposed to just purely reactive. Now, you get a good understanding of this in your shadow work. Most people who are not in tune with all aspects of their emotions and understand the proper way and channels to express those emotions, which you learn and understand a lot of that in your shadow work. Your shadow work, if you're really doing shadow work, should show you what emotions you're facilitating well and which ones you're not doing a good job. Okay? You deal with an influx of emotions that you react to on a daily basis, right? There's happiness, there's sadness, there's joy. There are it levels on both sides of that spectrum of what we're labeling good or bad. There's anger, there's rage, there's animosity, all these different aspects of these emotions. And an unharmonized individual who doesn't know when to express it. Now, let me clarify something. The energy and the aspects of anger and rage and the power that it can carry is, when you are a true magician, you can take the passion and the power behind those emotions and channel them towards something more productive. Anger and rage can be very destructive and toxic when you have no control over it. Yes, it can devour and consume you and destroy many aspects of your life, 100%. Okay? But the difference between somebody who's proactive and reactive is somebody who analyzes things, looks at things in depth before they react. Okay? Someone who is not harmonized in how to facilitate their emotions correctly usually just reacts right on the spot. Now, the problem with that is sometimes you can regret when you are just a purely reactionary being. When you don't have any type of self-discipline or control to assess a situation before you make a decision. And this almost kind of ties into the previous video on karma, which can make you or influence you to make an improper decision for yourself in your life. And it could create a lot of that negative energy or karma by that incorrect choice or decision that you solely made on just pure emotional reaction. Now, that decision could have been made out of anger. It could have been made out of rage. It could have been made out of animosity, regret, any of these things. Right? And sometimes those aspects of your emotions are not wise elements to make decisions on. Right? So you always want to get rooted and harmonized in your emotions. Even if it's something that gets you angry, you need to get that angry harmonized before you react and make a decision. Now, I want to stress this though too. I'm not talking about when sometimes you have to be purely reaction or react if you're in danger. That's a whole different story, because people always go, well, what if my life is being threatened? That's different. That's called survival mode to react. And when you're in survival mode, you do whatever you need to do to react to handle the situation or survive. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about situations where you clearly had the ability to make a controlled decision, but because of lack of personal discipline, spiritual discipline, you become purely reactionary and you make poor choices and decisions based off of not being able to facilitate your emotions correctly. It can be tough when somebody fucks you over, does you wrong. It can be tough if it's in a relationship and somebody does you foul, maybe cheats on you, steps out, or, does something just fucked up in general. Anything to activate and trigger your emotions, I get it. But how we analyze and look at that before we react, the difference what a reactionary man does is they assess the situation. They look at whatever choices and decisions I make, how's that going to impact me long term? See, a lot of people react to things not taking into account, how is this going to affect me long term? Now, look, we've all blown our lid, our cool, and went off on somebody. I've done it plenty of times in my life, and we said some foul things. We have to keep this in mind. Fuck off, get the fuck out of here, stag you, kiss my ass, fuck this, fuck, We also have to take into account everybody takes that type of criticism differently. Some people, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, because it could be tough to deal with, are very sensitive. And we do have to understand words do carry energy. Now, I'm totally in agreement. Sometimes people say things in the moment of anger. When you completely lose control of your emotions, you don't know what's bound to come out of your mouth. Sometimes your mind looks to say things, the most hurtful, disrespectful things you can say, because it's a form of attack, right? But we have to also, as we analyze through our shadow work, if we're trying to repair relationships with people, have I said or done things? Maybe. I can't expect everybody, look, I consider myself to have tough skin. I could take a lot of shit that people say, I'm at the point now in my life, you can say whatever you want, just don't put your motherfucking hands on me. That's a whole, now you're taking it to level 2. Words don't mean shit to me. They bounce off me now. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. Your pride and my ego would get in the way. You said the wrong thing to me, I was ready to snap. Now I'm like, just keep your motherfucking space and just don't put your hands on me. Words is just that, they words. But some people don't look at it like that. Words affect them and hurt them. I'm not saying certain words aren't gonna bother you when somebody's going in, but as you become more mature, you learn to deflect that shit and bounce that shit off you. But people who have no control of their egotistical pride don't have the ability to do that. And they're usually reactionary beings. They're very argumentative. They're always involved in some form of conflict because their pride won't let them not be patient before they react. They always got to just react on the spot out of pure emotion. That's not good, folks. And a lot of that, again, as I said earlier, is uncovered in your shadow work. When you start to really understand who and what you really are, not who you think you are, right? And that's a rude awakening sometimes on this path. Because a lot of people, up until they got on this path, they had this idea in their mind who they thought they were. And sometimes it's a very rude awakening and people go, man, shit, I guess I wasn't who I thought I was. And that could be good or bad. You can uncover a lot of powerful stuff about yourself you didn't know existed or had the potential or the ability. So I'm not just saying it's all the flip to the down or the negative side of things, right? But sometimes people ain't as hot shit as they thought they were. You ain't as special as you thought you were. You ain't the man that you thought you were. And that could be a rude awakening for somebody who has no control over their pride, over their ego. And usually somebody who is very emotional and reactionary is very engrossed into the weaker aspects of their ego. Now, we've talked multiple times, and I'm sure we will continue in the future, not all aspects of your ego is a bad thing. Contrary to belief in what's out there in lesser right-hand path philosophies and systems, whether it's religion or systems like, Confucianism, Buddhism, and all those enlightenment so-called paths, where everything is about, eliminate the ego, don't embrace any aspect of it, sweep it under the rug, meditate it, or pray it away. No. It's not what we do on this path. And that is not the correct understanding of the ego. There's good aspects, as I've said before, of your ego that protects you. When you stand up for something that is not right, some form of injustice, when you have your own opinion, when you're not in a conformist mentality that you just agree with everything because everybody else does. When you, again, may have to go into survival mode and protect yourself. These are good aspects of your ego. Okay? That's your ego. Don't let nobody tell you it's not. It is. Now, I'm not saying, but I think a lot of these paths just focus on the destructive parts of your ego. I'm not saying there are not destructive parts of your ego, because there are. When you think you got the biggest dick, right? And your feelings get hurt, and you run into a girl who tells you that somebody else, you thought you was the man laying it down and somebody else was handling it better. Or you was the female who thought you had the 14 karat gold punani, and you thought you had every man or your man on lock, and you got wind that somebody else was putting it on it better. And it could have been from him. Your pride and your ego get the best of you. I got the best pussy, but I ain't like all these other bitches out here. How many times have we heard that as men? And vice versa. Or you think you the baddest dude on the block, you could kick everybody's ass. Or I'm the man, ain't nobody could throw hands like me. And then you run into that dude who got better hands and knocks your ass out. It bruises your pride and your ego. You get your ass laid the fuck out. Or I'm the best player out here on the court. Ain't nobody can fuck with me, and then you get served. And your ego and your pride get hurt. Okay? hating on somebody just because you're jealous of them or envy them, that's a destructive aspect of your ego. Personally, on this path, you shouldn't have time to be hating on anybody and worried about what anybody else is doing or what they got or this, that, and the other. If you got that much free time, then you got plenty of time to be working on yourself. That's a destructive part of your ego, hating on somebody, being envious of somebody, or jealous of somebody for what they have or what they are, or maybe you're jealous of some attributes they have, whatever. Yes, I'm in total alignment. Those are destructive parts of your ego. But understand the ego in its totality. That's a strong connection to how a person is going to react or be proactive. If you're all egocentric and ego-driven, then it's very, very clear how you're going to react. It ain't going to take a rocket scientist to figure that shit out. Okay? It's no different to, as you see what's going on in the world over the last 10, 15 plus years with all the crazy shit that goes on in politics, the government, crime, war. Obviously, in the last few years, the coronavirus or COVID, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? How do human beings respond to trauma, right? Trauma is a key, and it's going to be the measuring rod or the gauge to whether you are a proactive person or just a purely reactionary being off of emotion. Now, trauma comes in many forms, in many aspects. There can be psychological trauma, right? And again, we work hardcore with that in our shadow work classes. Psychological trauma could be an inherited trauma that started at a very early age, right? You might have had a toxic upbringing. You might have had a very toxic relationship with your parents or your siblings. You might have had it rough while you were going to school. You might have been sexually abused, verbally abused all the time, physically abused, beaten, right? This too, we have to incorporate that too, because that might determine how a person reacts. That can make a person react, and sometimes in certain situations, rightfully so, in a very destructive manner. I say rightfully so because if somebody's been through a lot of that trauma and it's created a lot of psychological residue within their subconscious mind and their psyche, that can make an individual react very destructive, very emotional, very angry, right? People just don't get like that. You must understand that. When you run into a person, we all know, we probably say, man, why the person's so angry all the time? Or why are they so emotional? Or why do they get so aggressive? Or this, that, or the other. For the most part, and I'm not saying I justify it. If somebody reacts fucked up, by all means, I'm not trying to justify it. But what I am saying is sometimes there's a clear-cut reason for that, okay? And again, it doesn't make it right, but sometimes there's a root cause of why a person is so reactionary, why they're so emotional, right? And if you really think back or you just reflect in the history of your life, whether it's currently or in the past, we all have probably ran into some very, chaotic people, angry, destructive people, right? We all know somebody that, why are they so miserable all the time? Why are they so angry about shit? Why does it take just a snap of a finger and they get so, flip the script, or they get so angry, right? And at certain points in life, that could be you. I know there's been moments in my life because there was stuff going on around me and in my life that, certain things would just trigger my emotions and my anger. Let's keep it real. It's a very normal and human thing. And part of mastering yourself on this path is recognizing that and making the adjustments and the change. Because I can tell you this, if you just solely, purely react off of raw anger and emotion at some point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. If you don't get control of that, it can be very destructive. Right? I mean, we could use the example of road rage, right? How many people you see on the news, or maybe you know somebody, or maybe you were almost in a situation like that. Nowadays, you don't know. You might, out of just raw anger, you want to get out of the car and play Hercules and shit, and think you big bad and that. You walking up on somebody and they carrying guns. That's the weak part of your ego, right? I'm not saying it's easy to discipline yourself, right? I got to catch myself. This happens to me. But back in the day, I couldn't catch myself. Now, when a critical situation like that arises, I've got myself disciplined to the point where I hear that inner voice, aka your personal demon, say, "Look, it's not worth it. Let it go." And I tried to stamp in my mind, when it comes to things of that nature, as long as the motherfucker don't put their hands on me, touch me, violate my personal space, man, let it go. It's not worth it. But look, I keep it real. Like I said, don't be no punk. Somebody puts you in harm's way, you do what you got to do to defend yourself. But you don't need to be the initiator. And I grant it. Sometimes you could do everything right, check all the boxes, and look, it's just life. It's reality. Sometimes it ain't going to pan out, and you got to do what you got to do. I get it. But never voluntarily, without making an effort to put yourself in a situation that you don't need to be in, is what I'm trying to tell you, right? Back in the day, we didn't really have the capability to do that for a multitude of the reasons I just mentioned. But I say this, long story short, as I get to the end of this video, as I'm approaching my destination, what I'm trying to get you to see, you want to be a proactive being, not a purely reactive or reactionary being. Because sometimes making a quick, emotional, reactive decision without assessing the situation, how many of us have done that in the past, and then something snaps and go, oh man, so I wasn't what I thought it was. And we feel stupid afterwards sometimes. We go, damn, maybe if I would have just been a little more patient before I reacted and felt the situation out, maybe I wouldn't have put myself in that situation. Because sometimes you can make yourself look like a jackass, right? So all of this you must consider. This is going to help you in your skills dealing with yourself and your personal self and spiritual discipline. And it's also going to make your relationships and how you communicate with others a whole lot stronger and more productive and better. And that's the important thing. Because part of being proactive and reactive, how is your relationship with yourself? And how is your relationship with others? That's the point, okay? That's what you need to understand, okay? How is that relationship, okay? Do you have a grasp of it? Are you not in tune with it? Or are you just out there wandering aimlessly with no direction? Okay? So that's the purpose. And again, as I've said, all of this you get a greater understanding through your shadow work. Because through your shadow work, you will understand what type of person you are on all levels, all aspects, all facets. Okay? And that's critical. You know, this is the grimy work sometimes. This is the work that's not so glorious and glamorous on this path. Right? This is the work that a lot of people don't care to do. Because they feel as if, oh, I ain't got nothing wrong with me. I'm so deep and heavy. You know, I got my shit together. That's a destructive part of your ego, when you think you don't have no shit, nothing wrong with you, right? That's a fucked up part of your ego, okay? When you're thinking in your mind that, oh, I don't got anything wrong with me. Oh, I'm perfect. No, as I said before, we all got some shit we could work on. But anyway, having said that, that's going to wind down this video. Hopefully now you got a better understanding of the importance of being a proactive being than opposed to being just purely reactive. All right. If you need to reach out to me for a spiritual reading or consultation, if you need information on how to sign up and register for the 6th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, shoot me an email at khnum19 @gmail.com. My email address, along with the direct link to the Patreon page of Primordial Chaos to sign up for classes, along with the direct link to the podcast, Primordial Chaos Podcast. All of that is in the description box of this video that you are currently watching right now. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully this helped. Infernal blessings, and we will talk soon.